Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into the world of dementia, which is a condition that affects the brain and how we think, remember, and behave. And we're going to explore what it is and some of the most common types, because it's not just about Alzheimer's dementia, although that's the one that most people are familiar with. So before we dive in, I wanted to let you know about some different ways that you can connect with me. I have a new community on Facebook, and it's called This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. You can find me there, and that's a way for us to interact, and I can get some feedback from you guys about different episodes that you might want me to do. You could also visit my website, melissabphd.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. And that's the best way to get news and information and updates from me. And you can also learn more about this new membership site that I'm launching in late March called AgeWise U. And I'm going to be taking all of the podcast episodes and organizing them so that if you were to find something like this podcast on Dementia 101, and you were like, wonder what other episodes she has, well, over in the membership library, they're all right there for you. So it's just a way to curate all the content. So welcome to This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Batchelor, and I am a nurse practitioner with over 25 years of experience working with older adults and their families. And on today's episode, we're going to be discussing Dementia 101, and I want you to be sure that you stay tuned to the end to grab your free handout on the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. Welcome back to This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm Dr. Melissa Batchelor, and I am a nurse practitioner, and I wear a lot of different hats in my work, including hosting this weekly podcast to bring you news and information on aging, caring for someone living with Alzheimer's disease, and a wide range of topics that I hope will help move us towards becoming an age-friendly world. Because when things are age-friendly, they're friendly for everyone. So if you like the podcast, the best way to help me grow and support the podcast is to like it, share it, and leave a review in whatever platform you've tuned in on today. Because no matter how old you are today, we are all aging, and these issues are going to become increasingly important. If you're a millennial, there are things that need to be in place when you reach the age of 65. So we have about 20 to 25 years to get these things in place to help you age with the support and choices that will help you, just like the people that are 65 today. Your likes, shares, and reviews help get the information out to help more people dealing with these issues. But right now, let's get going on this week's episode. So first, let's start by explaining what is this term dementia. So dementia is this overall term for a particular group of symptoms. And the characteristics of dementia are often difficulties with memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking skills. And they are at the point where they're impacting your ability to function in your daily life. So walking into a room and forgetting why you went in there, and then you see the coffee pot and you're like, oh, I came in here to make coffee. Like that's really just kind of normal forgetfulness, that type of thing. What would be more concerning is someone that walked into the kitchen to do something. They look all around. They never remember, they don't remember what they're there for. They leave the room and they just move on to something else. And so that is someone who's having trouble with their memory. And even though in that particular example, they're just trying to get a cup of coffee, it still impacts their ability to do things. Because what if it was, trying to remember to take your medication? So these types of memory problems impact a person's ability to take care of themselves. And while we often don't see these behaviors until they're very late in the disease, the brain changes have been occurring as long ago as like 20 years. It's important to know the warning signs of all types of dementia. And if you're concerned about your memory, to get in to see a provider to be evaluated, because the sooner you're diagnosed and you actually know what you're dealing with, the better off it's going to be for a lot of different things. But your memory problems could also be related to something that's reversible, like maybe your thyroid's out of whack, or maybe you have a B12 deficiency. So it's better to have those things addressed, or even depression, to have those things addressed, because anything that's reversible, we want to do that, and not just let it go because we're worried or we're scared that someone's going to tell us we have Alzheimer's. You may want to check out my podcast called How Alzheimer's Disease or Dementia is Diagnosed. And in that particular episode, I'll go through all of the different things that need to be done in order to get to a diagnosis, because this is a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning we have to rule everything else out before we can say if you truly have Alzheimer's. So now let's talk about some of the different types. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia, and it accounts for about 60 to 80% of cases. And most people are going to have brain changes and one or more other causes of dementia, meaning there's a mixed dementia. And the way I think about Alzheimer's disease is that if you have a healthy brain, your brain should be plump and juicy like a grape. So if you think about what a grape looks like, all the neurons in your brain are working, they're functioning, the messages can get back and forth. But what happens with Alzheimer's disease is that the brain basically turns into a raisin. And so if you think about a raisin, all the deep crevices, your brain has shrunk. And now those messages, the neurons are dying. And so therefore the messages cannot get back and forth easily. And the person is going to be experiencing brain failure. So some of the symptoms that we'll see with this type of dementia is that they're going to have a lot of trouble remembering recent conversations, names, or maybe things that have happened. They may not particularly enjoy things that they used to. We use the term apathy for that. Or they may appear to be depressed. We're going to see a lot more communication problems. And that's because this type of all dementias eventually impact the person's ability to use and understand language. So they may know what they want to say to you, but they can't find the words, or you may be talking to them and, it's like the words aren't really going anywhere. And it's just because they're not able to understand verbal language anymore either. They could be more confused. They may have poor judgment and thinking that they can do something that they obviously cannot do. And we may see behavioral changes, and that's just because they're getting frustrated because of the communication changes. They are aware that something's going on. And they may be experiencing changes over the course of the day and from day to day. And so like some days they're fine, some days they're not. And so that can be confusing, but all of those should be warning signs that you need to have that evaluated. The next one that we're going to talk about is vascular dementia. This happens in about 5 to 10% of people with dementia that will have vascular dementia alone. But again, it's a lot more common for people to have these mixed types of dementias. One of the things, one of the things that you need to have done is to have a CT of your head, because what it will show with your brain is if it shows atrophy, that word means to shrink, basically the raisin piece of your brain, that's going to lead your providers to think it's more than likely an Alzheimer's type of dementia, compared to seeing little spots, like little mini strokes. That would lead your providers to think it's more of a vascular type of dementia, particularly if you have a history of heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, anything like that. And so if someone only has vascular dementia, they may just have like the slow thoughts, or have a really hard time making decisions. So their ability to plan or organize may be some of the initial symptoms that you see. And so maybe they're having trouble filling out a form, or maybe they used to be able to plan holiday dinners and did it like to a T. And now they're having trouble getting themselves organized and planning that event that they've done forever. But memory can also be affected. And people with vascular dementia tend to become less emotional, and they may have more trouble with what we call motor function. And so basically what that means is issues with their balance or with walking, or, so kind of like gross motor types of things compared to fine motor, which is, the ability to hold a pencil or a fork. These are your fine motor skills. So it's going to be your bigger muscle groups is where we may see these changes. The next type of dementia is frontotemporal degeneration. And about 60% of people who have FTD, that's the abbreviation for this one, are between the ages of 45 and 60. And so you may be aware that this is the type of dementia that Bruce Willis has. And when they first started saying that he was having issues with his memory, they said it was related to aphasia. And when they say the term aphasia, that is that difficulty in using and understanding language. You can have expressive aphasia, which is the difficulty in telling somebody, expressing what you're trying to say. But you can also have receptive aphasia, which means people are talking to you, but they basically sound like Charlie Brown's teacher and you don't know what they're talking about. So some of the typical early symptoms that we'll see with frontotemporal dementia is a dramatic change in somebody's personality and their behavior. But again, and this difficulty with producing and comprehending language. And so how it's a little bit different than Alzheimer's disease is that memory is typically spared in the early stages of frontotemporal dementia. And so that's what can make it difficult to know what's happening, because I think most people are more familiar with Alzheimer's disease and they're like, well, they don't have a problem with their memory, but they're acting very strange and they're having a lot of trouble talking to me and they don't really seem to understand what I'm saying. So again, it just needs to be checked out. The next type of dementia is dementia of Lewy body. And this happens in about 5% of cases where people just have dementia of Lewy body. Most of the time, people are going to have, about half the time, people with Alzheimer's disease are going to have some type of mixed dementia, which means you could have Alzheimer's disease with a vascular, or you might have Lewy body with Alzheimer's. But the early symptoms that you're going to see with Lewy body are sleep disturbances. So people are going to be having trouble sleeping. They may have very well-formed visual hallucinations, which means they literally think they may be seeing bugs crawling on them, or they see, a stranger, in the room. And so they're going to have these visual hallucinations, and they may have visual spatial impairment, which means the ability to kind of track where you are in space and time. So an example of visual spatial ability would be for me to tell you to imagine that you're going to leave your house and go to your mailbox. Depending on where you live, that could be a pretty long path. It could just be a short trip down the driveway. But asking somebody, describe to me how you would get from the house to the driveway or to the mailbox, or how would we get to the department store, or how do we get to the grocery store? And they are losing this ability to imagine those things in your head. It's just like one of the tests that we do for diagnosing Alzheimer's is we have you draw interlocking like hexagons, which are 5-sided figures, or have you draw a cube. And that's because you have to be able to think about what a cube looks like and draw all the lines. So you can be looking at the image and not be able to replicate it. Or again, this could be someone who gets lost or isn't able to tell you how to get from one place to the next. With Lewy body dementia, you're going to see really dramatic changes throughout the day or from day to day. And you're going to also see problems with motor function. So this is similar to Parkinson's, but so you're going to be seeing some falling. But again, with Lewy body dementia, those falls are typically forward, and with Parkinson's disease, they are typically falling backwards. And at some point, you're going to see memory loss with Lewy body dementia as well. And so the last type of dementia that we're going to talk about today is Parkinson's, or dementia related to Parkinson's disease. And this happens in about 25% of people with Parkinson's actually develop some type of dementia. So what you're going to see with this are typically problems with movement, which is what we see in Parkinson's disease. So they slow down, they have a lot more rigidity in their muscles. You may see a tremor, and you'll see changes in their ability to walk. And so these are people that are going to be falling more. So and frontal temporal dementia and Lewy body dementia also have falling as part of their kind of the symptoms that you'll see. But a person with Lewy body would fall forward, and a person with Parkinson's disease is going to fall backwards. And with Parkinson's disease, the cognitive symptoms that you're going to see are going to happen much later in the disease, typically years after having been diagnosed with the movement disorder. Thank you for joining me today. Again, this is just a very brief introduction to some of the more common types of dementia and just explaining what the term dementia means as this broad umbrella term. Don't forget that you can join my new private community on Facebook. It's called This Is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. Visit my website at melissabphd.com to sign up for my weekly newsletter. And that way you can stay up to date with all the news and information that's going on outside of just the podcast. And you can learn more about my new membership site that I will be launching in late March 2024 called Age-Wise You, where I'm actually going to be curating all of the podcast episodes so that you can find things by category. All the dementia content is even broken up into like brain health, early, middle, late stage, and we'll just continue to add to that as we go. Also, don't forget to go to my website, melissabphd.com/10 warning signs. It's the number 10, so 10, and then warning signs, all one word. Or you can go to my website, Melissa B. PhD, and search for this episode. So just search Dementia 101, and it will be in the blog. All righty. I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You can check out other episodes on this platform or visit my website at melissabphd.com. Thanks to listeners like you, in the first 18 months of This Is Getting Old, we have reached a ranking of top 10% globally, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your support in making that happen. I'm also really excited to let you know that you can now work with me directly, either one-on-one or you can join one of the groups that I coach. Particularly if you're an adult child dealing with an aging parent or a caregiver trying to manage the complexities of someone living with Alzheimer's disease. In the show notes, you can also find information about how to reach out and contact me directly, and I hope to work with each of you very soon as we discover and share more ways to make the world more age-friendly for everyone. My website also has information about how to contact me for speaking engagements, or if you have someone you'd like to recommend as a show guest for This Is Getting Old. If you have a product or service in the aging space that you would like to advertise and or sponsor an episode, there's more information about that on my website. And you can also find books and courses that I've developed and learn more about the products and services that I recommend. So don't forget, if you like the podcast, the best way to help me grow and support it is to like it, share it, and leave a review in whatever platform that you've tuned in on today. Your likes, shares, and reviews help increase my rating and my rankings, and also help other people find the podcast. I look forward to reading your reviews and hearing from you.